Strategos, shall we signal the fleet to advance?
No, we wait for the Persian dawn. By daybreak, our fleet will trap them. But what if their triremes are ready?
The year is 466 BCE, and you are rowing through thick river fog toward an enemy fleet that has no idea you're already this close. 200 ships are moving through this fog with you, and not one of them has made a sound loud enough to be heard past the next hull. The marine beside you has checked his sword's edge 4 times in the last hour, and you have stopped counting how many times you have done the exact same thing. Somewhere out there, a single Persian sentry is warming his hands and glancing at that same fog bank without a shred of real concern. Ahead of you, the Persian fleet sits anchored and half asleep, cook fires still burning, because nobody over there believes the Greeks could possibly already be this far south. The man who brought you this far is standing at the front of the fleet, and by the end of this video, you understand why he is about to fight 2 entire battles before this single day is finished. Beside you, a different marine grips his shield strap so tightly, his knuckles have gone white, and neither of you has said a word in over an hour. 170 men row each of these ships, and every single one of them is rowing toward a fight none of them can see clearly yet. In the next few minutes, this quiet river mouth is about to host 2 battles in the space of 1 single brutal day. 13 years after Plataea ended Persia's invasion of Greece, Athens and its allies were no longer playing defense. They were pushing the war straight back onto Persian territory. Not every Athenian agreed on how far to carry that offensive, but Cimon had built a career on making that argument for them, one victory at a time. That offensive ran through a new alliance called the Delian League. Dozens of Greek cities pooling ships and money for exactly one purpose: driving Persia out of Greek territory. Every city in that alliance paid into a shared treasury, and Cimon had built his reputation on spending that money exactly where it mattered most, on ships and campaigns rather than ceremony. So Persia decided to answer that offensive with one of its own, gathering a fresh fleet and army on the southern coast of Asia Minor to pull the rebellious Ionian Greek cities back under its control. The plan was simple: move up the coast 1 city at a time, retaking each port before the Greeks could organize a real response. Every Greek city along that coast now had the exact same decision in front of it: side with the Persian fleet approaching from the sea, or gamble on a Greek alliance that might not arrive in time to help at all. Word of that Persian build-up reached Cimon fast, and he understood immediately that the plan only worked if Persia reached those cities before he did. So Cimon south with 200 ships before Persia had even finished gathering its own, did to beat that plan to the coast entirely. Smaller cities, already loyal to the League, lined their own harbours just to watch that fleet pass, since 200 ships moving with purpose was the clearest proof yet that Greece intended to win this fight. His first stop was Phalis, a city still weighing whether to side with Persia or Greece, and Cimon needed that answer settled before he could move any further south. When the city hesitated too long, Cimon simply sealed the harbour and waited, letting Phasaelus feel exactly how little choice it actually had left. Phasaelus chose Greece, and that single decision blocked the first step of the entire Persian plan before a single Persian ship had even arrived.
You have sealed our harbour and starved our patience. What terms do you offer a city with no ships left to resist you? Open your gates to the League, and this harbour reopens by morning. That is the only term that matters.
Word that Phasaelus had turned Greek reached Ferendatis fast, and it told him something he did not want to hear: that Cimon had already beaten him to the coast. Cimon didn't wait for the rest of his forces to catch up. He attacked the moment he found the Persian fleet still anchored and unprepared. Persian ships that had been sitting still with their crews only half awake never even had the chance to properly raise their oars. Tithrastes screamed for his ships to cut their anchor lines, but a sleeping fleet cannot outmaneuver an enemy that is already among it. Ships meant to fight side by side ended up crashing into each other instead, since panic rarely leaves room for coordination.
Form up! Form up on my stern! We can still hold the channel!
By the time the sun had fully cleared the horizon, the Persian fleet that had taken months to assemble no longer existed as a fighting force at all. Some Persian ships were captured whole rather than sunk, and that single detail would matter far more than anyone fighting that morning could have guessed. Tithrastes watched his entire command collapse in less time than it takes to eat a morning meal. Most commanders would have called that morning a complete victory and stopped there. But Cimon looked at the riverbank and saw an entire Persian army that still didn't know what had just happened to its fleet. That army was still eating its midday meal, completely unaware that the fleet meant to support it no longer existed. Cimon's own officers gathered around him, exhausted and bloodied, expecting the order to finally rest.
The men have been rowing and fighting since before dawn. Let them rest before we move again.
Rest is what that army is counting on us to take. We land now.
So Cimon gave an order his own exhausted men could barely believe. Land immediately and finish this before nightfall. Before that second attack even began, Cimon tried something almost nobody in that army was expecting. He dressed his own best marines in captured Persian headgear and sent them in on the captured Persian ships. From a distance, on ships flying captured Persian colours, that disguise was good enough to buy exact confusion Cimon needed. One Persian scout squinted at those ships a moment longer than most, then shrugged and looked away, deciding his own doubt wasn't worth raising an alarm over. Every oar stroke had to look unhurried, because a fleet rowing too urgently would have given the entire trade before it even reached the shore. Persian soldiers on the riverbank actually relaxed at the sight of those ships, certain their own was finally returning to reinforce them. The moment those ships touched the riverbank, the Persian robes came off, and the Persian soldiers, who had just relaxed their guard, were suddenly facing armed Greek marines instead. An army spent its whole morning waiting for reinforcements, instead found itself fighting for its life, with no warning at all. Ferendates tried to rally them, and what he shouted at his own collapsing line that afternoon has survived exactly as it was recorded.
Hold this line! There is nowhere left to run that they cannot follow you!
An army that has already decided it is losing rarely listens to the one man insisting it can win. The same marine who checked his sword 4 times that morning lowered his shield at last, and for the first time all day, his hands had finally stopped shaking. By late afternoon, the army that had marched to this river to conquer Nice was instead scattering into the countryside just to survive the day. By nightfall, Cimon had done something almost no commander in Greek history had managed before him. He had destroyed an entire fleet and an entire army in the space of a single day. Ancient historians still argue over the exact year this happened, but nobody argues over what it accomplished. It ended Persia's last real attempt to retake the Ionian coast. The captured gold and ships were worth so much that Cimon reportedly used part of the spoils to help fund new walls and buildings back in Athens itself. The same assembly that had argued over funding this war now argued over how loudly to celebrate it instead. News of the defeat reportedly threw the Persian court into real disorder, and some ancient writers even connected it to Xerxes I's death not long afterward, though modern historians are far more cautious about drawing that direct line. Whatever the exact cause of what followed at court, one fact never needed any embellishment at all. Persia did not send another major fleet against Greece for a generation after that single day.
One morning cost them their fleet. One afternoon cost them their army. Let them explain that arithmetic to their king.
That river mouth is a quiet stretch of Turkish coastline today, and almost nobody who visits it realizes an empire's fleet and army were both broken there before a single sunset. If this story stayed with you, leave a like and subscribe, because Cimon fought 2 separate battles in a single day and won both of them. And if you want to see how that same war began, the Battle of Salamis is waiting for you.